This is the Pilot Point Bearcat Pregame Show, brought to you by Homeland Roofing on PilotPointBearcats.com. And now, here's your host, Ryne Menard, with John Little and Chris Nortman.
Happy Friday, Bearcat fans. This is the Bearcat Pregame Show brought to you by Homeland Roofing. Thanks to the guys over there for sponsoring this year. I have John and Norty with me as usual. Guys, it's nice to be 1-0.
Absolutely. Beats 0-1.
Next step's 2-0 now.
That'd be a winning streak.
Is it a streak for 2 games, or is it got to be 3 games in a row to get a streak?
Nah, 2's a streak.
Well, John said it. You heard it here first. 2's a streak.
Breaking sports news.
Breaking sports news.
See the ESPN sounds in the background.
Hey.
No.
Well, we're going to start this week's show, dive into the district a little bit. We're not going to break it down like the old District 4 3A show done by Professor Diggs every week. But you're going to go around and list out the scores and see who jumps out with us. So District 4 3A went 5-2 in the opening week. The wins were by Whitesboro over Crum, 41-16. Paradise over Lindsay, 36-7. Ponder over Valley View, 64-14. And Boyd over Blue Ridge, 45-26. And then you had the Bearcats beating Callisburg, 28-13. And now we go to the losses. Both of these are surprising. One of them is downright shocking, kind of. The surprising one, Peaster lost to Toller, 29-15. We thought that this would be the year for Peaster. Like, they made the play, snuck into the playoffs last year. This would be a year we thought they were really going to take a step forward, and they start off 0-1. And then Brock loses to Texarkana Pleasant Grove, 28-7. John, you were telling me about them. They're a bit bigger, and they compete in 4A Division II. So tell me more about that. What do you think about that game?
Yeah, not really a shocker to me. I think time will tell, but Brock has a gauntlet of a pre-district schedule here. They got Texarkana, Pleasant Grove, which I think I told you they were in the state championship game a couple years ago. I think they won it. It was like 2019, I believe. And then they're at Wichita Falls Hershey, who was 12-2, and they're a 4A school. They're 11-point dogs this week. And then they got Wimberley and Gunner coming up. So they got a heck of a pre-district schedule, and I think they did that by design to kind of battle test them going into district and then the playoffs and see if that lights a fire under them on a run. They expect to be in the state championship game again, because you saw how when they're motivated, like they were against Jim Ned last year in the rematch, boy, they put it on Jim Ned in that rematch. So, maybe some early season losses will a lot of fire under those Brock Eagles, but it's yet to be determined if that's going to be a good thing for them to have such a tough pre-district schedule or not. Time will tell.
Speaking of Jim Ned, they got beat up pretty good this week. They lost 7-30 to Howley.
Wow. Yeah, so some of these teams taking big risk early. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a big risk or maybe 2. But for a team like Brock to kind of stack the whole non-district, I think you risk like your psyche starting off the season. You can tell yourself you're playing excellent competition, but man, if you don't come away with some wins, or you only come away with 1 win, and let's say they beat Gunner. Gunner's a darn good football team, but they're quite a bit smaller than Brock. Man, you might be playing mind games to start, when come district time.
Yeah, but Ryan, if you remember the the kind of the old adage on those guys was Brock had such an easy non-district schedule before that they wouldn't even play their starters really in the second half of games, and there was some thought that maybe that hurt them late in the season that their starters weren't prepared to play complete 4 quarters. So there's 2 sides to every coin. We will see.
That's right. One on my list here, the score that jumps out to me is Ponder. Now, I know Valley View may not be the strongest challenge, but Ponder putting 64 points up on the board week 1. I know last year they switched back to a spread offense, but this is probably a lot of the same kids that just 2 years ago tried to run, 2 plays a minute, and they put up 64 points in the game against Valley View. I would love to dive into that a little deeper and see what that was all about. Boyd getting a big win over Blue Ridge. We know they had a lot of adversity towards the end of last year and just couldn't string any wins together. Whitesboro, who's the dark horse for a lot of people around here, 41-16 over Crum. But like I started at the beginning of this, Peaster, who we kind of looked at as the team this year that might make a big improvement, take a step forward. We liked John last time you and I were there. We liked what we saw from the team. We liked what we saw as the atmosphere from the fans and the program. And for them to come out week one and take a loss, I wonder what that's going to lead to.
Yeah, and Professor Diggs said they were favorites in that, so that was an upset. And they've got the coach's son McElroy still at quarterback, and he's a stud. And they've got that Tremar Gilbert, the running back. So that's something to keep an eye on over there. See if the Peaster Greyhounds take a step forward or backwards this year.
What an impossible job to be putting spreads in week one of high school football, considering we were, double-digit dogs to Callisburg, and we went out there and were in control from that game from the opening kick.
Ryan, something I thought was crazy in that Ponder game, that was 57-0, I think, at halftime. You don't just stumble on across 57 points.
That's an excellent point.
And a half. You rarely do you get that in a full game, but just come across that in a half, like that's insane.
Yeah, that's a great point. 64 points. You don't stumble into 64 points in a game either, but anything can happen over the course of 4 quarters. Snowball starts rolling up. But yeah, you're right. 50-plus points and a half. You don't just luck into that. That's they've got an offense that we're going to have to look at come that time.
My senior year, we only scored 59 points, the most all year. We had a kicker we brought in to try to get to 60, but that guy missed it. He's on this podcast with us here. Ryne Menard booted in a little right.
Still got the 50 burgers, so Caleb Marsh should be happy with that.
This whole section will be edited out. So
good call.
Yeah. So moving to something more close to home for the Bearcats is we're not going to recap the first game. We're going to leave that to the post game show from Bearcat Insider, but I do want to get y'all's impressions. So this is the first time we've got to see this team. First time we got to see Coach Peacock be the head man on the sideline. John, what was your impression of this team week one?
Well, Ryan, I think the coaching staff did a great job of having the Bearcats ready to play on Friday night, and they came out. It looked like more inspired than Callisburg, and determined to get Coach Peacock is the first win as a head coach for him. So we jumped all over them 21-0 by half, and it was a really good first half on both sides of the ball for our Bearcats. And Callisburg really couldn't get anything going offensively in the first half. So let's give credit to the new look Bo Blake Burris Bearcat defense. They shut them down in that first half, and Callisburg, they were fumbling the ball. They were, maybe it's just first game jitters. They didn't have their cadence right. I don't know what was going on with them. But, then Callisburg came out, made some nice adjustments in the second half, and it was obvious that they saw something with that seam route that they kept going to with the inside receiver on the twin side. They kept having success with that. And then, ultimately the Bearcats needed a long scoring drive to eat up some clock and put the nail in the coffin, and they decided to go with the steady diet of Colin Lynch, and he was up to the task, man. Credit to him for finding the end zone there on that last drive and really salting the thing away.
Yeah, I agree. Chris, what do you got?
So there were some 3 things I noticed about the game. One, first game of the year, you noticed this quite a bit. We had a lot of players cramping. We that put us in a little pinch there in the fourth quarter. Luckily, we had number 3 coming in to help close us out in the game. That helped to have that. The big thing that I noticed was the fight in them. The Bearcats did get out to a big 21-0 lead, and momentum kind of went away from them there in the second half. We got to a 1-possession game. We got a good stop on defense, and then we came back and we marched down the field and scored. A lot of teams when that momentum gets taken away, they crumble, and we fought through that. And that was impressive for the first game of the year.
That's kind of where I was going to go with this is I think, for those who know Kyle Peacock, I think this team took the personality of their leader. You see a lot of teams, especially in this day and age, when you come out hot and you get a touchdown on a big play, you get a stop, you get another touchdown. Sometimes you can see maybe the highs early in a football game get a little too high. And then when it starts going that other direction and you start not being able to put the ball in the end zone, the other team starts controlling the ball, controlling the clock, cutting that lead down every possession. Sometimes you see those lows get a little too low. I thought that they did an excellent job of not ever getting too high when things were good, not getting it too low when things were not going well, and ultimately it led them to be able to put the slide on, put the brakes on that slide and close the game out. One thing we talked about in the broadcast, which is, it's just natural this time of year. Hopefully, throughout the year, we're able to work out of this. But we talked about how, and they talked about this on some of the podcasts that they had did, Coach Burris and Coach Peacock, on the scrimmages, is when they started getting tired, they had a little bit more mental mistakes than earlier in the game. Luckily, in this game, it wasn't necessarily they weren't missing assignments, but we did see a little bit of lack of discipline there when we got a little exhausted, got a little fatigued, a couple penalties, a couple fumbled snaps, just a couple out-of-character things from the team, and we expect to see that get cleaned up as the season progresses. But it was an excellent outing all in all. Went on the road, got a win, and ultimately can't be any better than 1-0.
Absolutely.
So that's going to get us into the first part of our pregame show when we turn our focus to Plainview.
Homeland Roofing LLC has been serving the DFW area since 2014 and is a proud sponsor of Bearcats football. Homeland Roofing is a full-service contractor who specializes in storm restoration and provides end-to-end service for all insurance claims. If you've had storm damage, you've filed a claim, but have questions about that next step, or you'd like a complimentary inspection, call Homeland Roofing at 469-343-3536, 469-343-3536, or find us on Facebook, Homeland Roofing, Texas.
So let's get into the players to watch for the Bearcats this upcoming week against Plainview. Doherty, give us your guy first.
So last week, a focus on offensive line. I'm going to go back with that same group. Last week, I used monstrosity of a man in Ryne Menard. This week, I'm going to go with behemoth of a man and Eddie Batista, big number 68. Guy's just a monster up front, holding down that center position. I reached out to him today for some questions and comments. He talked to him about the snaps. He said, first game, it was hot. It was a little humid. He got a little sweaty hands. They got that fixed, though. They got him a little towel. They got that thing cleaned up. We only had 2 bad snaps. I look forward to this week. I don't think he's going to have any. I think he's going to be a mauler up front. On the defensive side of the ball, also, I look forward to him getting more pressures. Him and Ryne Menard last week. Ryan, I think in my comment, in my statement last week, only had 1 sack, and you got another one this week or last week. I look for Eddie Batista to try to get one too. He didn't have any sacks last year, but he was also a big part of the pressure on the front line. I'm looking forward to Eddie having a good week this week.
Yeah, it was, I think, the first or second play of the game, Ryne Menard busts right through the line, and as he's flushing out the quarterback to the right, Eddie Batista actually turned him back in the center of the pocket, which allowed the Bearcats to get the sack. So great pressure from both of them early last week, and we'll hope we're going to need to see it again this week, and we'll get into some more reasons why about that later. But let's go to John for his player to watch.
Yeah, Ryan, I'm going to audible a little bit. I thought about going with Colin Lynch, and even Cale Martin had a real good first week. But I think Aston Kirby's been slept on quite a bit. And, number 8 picked right up where he left off before his injury last year. He's a leading receiver in week 1 there with 9 receptions for 146 yards and a 57-yard TD. And, he flashed that speed that he's got running away from the Callisburg secondary, and not even that Mississippi mud flap he's got coming out of that back of that helmet. That couldn't even slow him down on Friday night. And I really want to see him get going in the return game. Hopefully, Plainview is not listening to this. Maybe they'll kick him the ball, because you saw, I think, Callisburg. I don't know if they knew Aston was going to be back there or not, but their game plan was definitely not to let anybody return a punt, because they were basically punting the ball out of bounds.
Yeah, he did start off. We had a little bit of trouble starting off on our own with the broadcast, and we came live as he was running down the field for a touchdown. So he beat us. He beat the broadcast team to the end zone Friday night, and let's hope he can get it started early again this Friday night. I'm going to go a little bit of a different route. I'm gonna take two guys here, Jessie Rangel and Andrea Witherspoon. Both made their varsity debuts Friday night from the corner position. Just over the years, and I'm not just talking about the last 2 years we've been doing this. Over a long time of watching Bearcat football, I have seen a lot of corners have struggle when they first come up, learning what it takes to be on varsity, playing in space sometimes, just get lost out there. And last week, those two guys looked like they had been on the varsity a couple of years playing corner. They were great in coverage down the field. The only success that Callisburg had in the pass game was in the second half on the slant routes from the slot. They couldn't get anything going down the sideline. And both those boys came up and they showed willingness to be physical, make tackles in the run game, make tackles in the screen game. I believe it was Witherspoon on the first drive. It was Witherspoon or Rangel, one of the two.
It was Witherspoon.
Came up early on a
Huge.
fourth down. They threw a tunnel screen or a little bubble screen out there, and he came up and made the tackle for loss, into the turnover on downs. And they're the players to watch this week because Plainview lost a lot of talent from last year's roster that I'm going to get into in a minute. But maybe their most talented player, the only player on the roster that has multiple Division I offers, is a 6'3" senior receiver, and one of these two guys is going to be with him all night. And they're going to have that 3 safety look over the top for help. But ultimately, this receiver from Plainview, 6'3", 220 pounds, Division I offers, he's going to make some catches, and when he does, these kids are going to have to tackle him.
Yeah, that's number 10, Morgan Pearson. Ryan, if you remember back 2 years ago when he was a sophomore, he had a real nice night in Pilot Point. He made some incredible catches. He is, like you said, he's 6'3", he's 225. He's got 11 Division I offers, including Iowa State, North Texas, Oklahoma State. So he's legit. He's a heck of a baseball player here as well. So he's a two-sport star.
Yeah, so let's get into Plainview. Plainview Indians head coach Joe Price. In 2021, they went 8-4. They made the Oklahoma State playoffs, went a couple rounds deep before they lost. They did lose their quarterback, Reese Taylor, who was their starting quarterback the last 2 years when we played him. He was an athlete. And they did lose their best running back and their star middle linebacker, Caden Pickens. He's somebody John highlighted before the first matchup 2 years ago at Massey Stadium. And both those guys were back last year, and man, they were both real tough to stop. Both those guys are gone, but like I said, the ultimate playmaker is still there on the sideline. He missed last year's game against the Bearcats, but 2 years ago, he did have some explosive plays, including, if you remember, John, right before halftime, they threw him a ball down the sideline, caught us sleeping a little. And I believe, if I remember right, we pushed him out of bounds at like the 2 or 3 yard line with no time left on the clock in the first half.
Yeah, thank goodness it was Ish on that side because he had the athletic ability to make up for that and push him out of bounds right before he was able to score. So that would have been a huge turning point in the game.
Yeah, they run pretty.
Was Caden Pickens the guy they played hard-working man every time he touched the ball last year?
He's number 32. I think you're right. He ran a kickoff. He ran a kickoff back on us last year, Norty, and he was my favorite Oklahoma high school football player last year. Although I don't have a lot he doesn't have a lot of competition in that for me. But I did see where he had 222 tackles last season, like 900 yards rushing, and he's playing at East Central Oklahoma this year.
Well, he was a beast, and like I said, before we even played our first game against Plainview, John had highlighted him and said he was going to be a problem, and he sure was. Plainview runs, what seems to be the most popular high school offense these days. They run a spread offense but they really like to, or in the past, they've really liked that power run up the middle because they've had good athletes in Reese Taylor and Caden Pickens. I'm sure they have good athletes again now, and they're going to, run a similar offense. But the ultimate playmaker is out there on the edge. Big, like we've talked about, a 6'3", 220-plus pound receiver, Morgan Pearson. And because he's the number one playmaker now, they like to get him the ball in a variety of different ways. And one of the ways that they like to do the last 2 years in getting him the football is give it to him on the jet sweep, running from left to right or right to left, get him going with some momentum, give him the ball, let him break contain. From my sources, they hadn't run that much in the scrimmage yet, but I know the Bearcats are prepared for that. So that's a little bit about Plainview. They did not have a game last week. Oklahoma high school football will start this week. So this will be their first game of the season. But that's what I have on just generic. Their defense. They run a generic 4-3, 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers, 4 members of the secondary. So that's the defense. I don't remember them being much of a blitzing team. Kind of like to play their base defense and make you earn what you get. Another thing about the last 2 matchups between the Bearcats and the Indians, the Bearcats have gotten off to pretty explosive starts the last 2 years when they've played Plainview, especially 2 years ago at home. Got off to a really explosive start. That was the most explosive Bearcat team John and I have covered was 2020 with Max Holler and those guys. But, boy, it seemed like at the end the Bearcats were just holding on for dear life, waiting for the clock to run out to get away with that victory. Last year we got off to a good start. Plainview kind of brought it within close, and then it was a real grinded-out win for the Bearcats at the end of the night. So I think we're going to be more in for that sort of style, hopefully get off to a good start, but it's going to turn into a real grinder, and the Bearcats are going to have to fight for this victory. Nordy, what do you got on Plainview?
I had a lot of the same kind of notes you had. This was their first game. They got knocked out in the second round. I did see they're ranked number 8 in 3A in Oklahoma. Their offense last year was pretty high powered, averaging 35.7 points per game, turning 6 starters. I did have a guy to watch out for was Justice Gilliam. He's 6'1", 250. Seems like a little stout offensive lineman. I did read he started last year as a freshman, and he was the first freshman to start in 10 years for Coach Joe Price. The kid's received a couple D1 offers as a lineman, so he could be someone to watch out for on both sides of the ball. Could be a mean guy up front. That was most of my notes I had on Plainview.
Well, John, let's go see what you got about Plainview, and then let's get into our 3 keys of the game.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be interesting to see how they replace their quarterback. It looks like number 7, Grant Graves, who's a senior, is going to be under center. And so maybe it'll benefit the Bearcats that this is going to be his first real game action as a starter. And with the Bearcats having 1 game under their belt, we may have an advantage there. Of course, we already talked about Morgan Pearson, the 3-star wide receiver / defensive back. Number 10, he's going to be all over the field. And then the guy that they're looking at to replace Caden Pickens is number 21, Blake Stewart. So he's a junior. He's listed at 6'2", 200 pounds. He's going to play middle linebacker and some running back. And if you remember, Ryan, they made a big change in the second half last year, Plainview that is, offensively. They started out in a spread, and they were having all kinds of problems with their cadence and guys jumping off sides. And then they ended up, if you remember, they went under center and 2 back and just kind of started giving it to Pickens 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and they were having a lot of success in that in the second half. So it'll be interesting to see if they bail on their game plan this year or not. I don't think they will because with Morgan Pearson out there, I think they're going to look to get him the ball in multiple ways as many times as possible because he's going to be the guy. That's all I got on players to watch and kind of the overview on Plainview. If you want to get into the keys.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and dive right into the keys of the game and see what it's going to take for the Bearcats to come away with a victory on Friday night.
Yes, sir, Ryan. So key number 3 I've got is finish the fight. And again, I think the depth chart might play a factor in this game. Plainview has quite a roster that they've given us. 47. I counted 47 folks on that roster compared to 26 to the Bearcats. So they got the numbers on us. Now I don't know what their JV and all that looks like, but they've got 13 seniors listed. So we'll see if that has a a factor in the game. But I think the depth chart, and again, the Bearcats got off to a great start in the first half and, salted that thing away in the second half. But we'll see if we can play 4 quarters of solid football this Friday. That's key number 3. And key number 2 is to avoid the second game shenanigans. If you remember back to the second game last season, when we witnessed the debacle in DeKalb, if you will, as it were. Unfortunately, the officials probably played a bigger role in that game than our Bearcats would have liked for them to have played. But the point is, we got to avoid a similar letdown in our performance, coming off of what some could say was a little bit of an emotional win, number 1 for Coach Peacock, and I know the boys were pressing to get that win for him. So I think we'll be able to tell by the end of the first quarter if our Bearcats are emotionally into this one or not on Friday night, and we'll see if maybe the first game of the season for the Plainview squad, if they have a bunch of mistakes and penalties and things that maybe they haven't been able to clean up since they've only gone through that one scrimmage against Ada, I believe it was. So maybe some botched snaps and some early season false start penalties could be a factor there for Plainview. And then key number 1, and I think Chance will remember this one because it's by Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock from 1988, and it's called It Takes Two. Let me see if I can press play here. Hit it. Y'all remember this one?
I wouldn't say I remember it, but I've heard it.
Takes 2 to make things go right. It takes 2 to make it out of sight. It's going to take Aston and crew to make it out of sight, I think, on Friday night. It takes 2 to make it out of sight. I'll get to rapping here in a second. I'm Rob Bass and I came to get down. I'm not internationally known, but I'm known to rock a microphone because I get stupid. I mean outrageous. Stay away from me if you're contagious, because I'm a winner. No, not a loser. See, it's what I choose. Ladies love me. You know this, Chris. Girls adore me. I mean, even the ones that never saw me, like the way that I rhyme at a show. The reason why, man, I don't know. So let's go, cuz. So anyway.
I did not inherit any rapping abilities from him.
I'm not as good as I once was, Norty, but I am good once as I ever was. That's a little Toby Keith reference since we're playing Oklahoma team. Thank you, Toby. So anyways, what I mean by that is it takes 2. So I think we're going to have to double team old number 10, Morgan Pearson. And, hopefully he doesn't get 2 or more touchdowns in the game. And I think kind of the magic number is around 200 yards. We got to hold him under that. If we hold him under 2 touchdowns and under 200 yards, I like our chances. But I also think it's going to take, like I said, a double team. We're gonna need Crew Chandler. We're gonna need Aston Kirby. We're gonna need those corners, Witherspoon, the ones you mentioned, Ryan, to just have a huge game. To get our second victory of the season. So that's what I got.
How would you like to be a defensive coordinator when you're going in and you hear, man, if you can just keep that guy under 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, we have a solid chance. Man, how nightmarish is that?
Well, man, we put
only 200 yards.
I remember we played a wide receiver that went to Oklahoma State from Bishop Dunn, and that guy had 300 all-purpose yards on us, and we still beat him 21-13. I think Paul Dennis, had a tackle that saved him from going another 99 yards and maybe finishing the game. And I broke up a couple of passes to him, but I gave him about a 45-yard cushion so he couldn't get behind me.
I bet there were a lot of teams last year saying, man, I wish we would have held Aiden Cox under 200 yards.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah. Well, guys, it's been fun tonight. It's going to be fun Friday night as the Bearcats start their home opener at home against the Plainview Indians. It'll be the 3rd time in 3 years we see these guys starting to get a little bit familiar. Still a few guys on both sides are going to have been a part of all 3 games. So it'll be kind of fun to see how it goes. But I'm excited to bring the home opener on Friday night. Should have fewer technical difficulties than last week, being we're at our home field, not just the Bearcats, but the Bearcat broadcast team. So from us here at the Bearcat Pregame Show, brought to you by Homeland Roofing, that's all we have for you. We'll see you Friday night. Go Bearcats.
Go Bearcats.
Go Bearcats.